This man's rock heart is tested when he discovers a cute mermaid with soft, shimmering curls and wide, innocent eyes, trapped in a cruel cage. She's fragile, gentle, and untouched by the horrors of war, like a child unaware of the world's cruelty. At first, Kieran views her as nothing more than a slave, cursing her for her helplessness. He treats her harshly, seeing her as a mere object to control. Melusine, in turn, knows little of the world around her. Confused and lost, she behaves like a baby, unaware of the true danger she's in. She's not a warrior like him, just a fragile creature caught in the midst of a world she doesn't understand. But as time passes, something shifts. The bond between them becomes undeniable, tested by forces neither of them can control. To return to the sea, Melusine must kill the one she loves. The curse hangs over them both. Will Melusine follow the dark fate laid out for her? Or will Kieran, burdened by his own choices, make the ultimate sacrifice? Let's find out. As it turns out, a certain Grand Duke had orchestrated a rebellion, and the Emperor was furious. He sent Killen to eliminate Baron Barton's entire family. Corpses filled the entire Baron's mansion. Killen walked coldly towards Baron Barton. The man looked at everything in disbelief, but his son had already fallen to the ground. First, he let out a scream. Why? What did we do wrong? Why are you being so cruel to our family? Killen's expression remained unchanged, and the man became anxious. What rebellion? You know this has nothing to do with us. We were framed, and you've seen my loyalty to His Majesty all these years. I don't know much about what you're saying. I only know His Majesty ordered me to eliminate Baron Barton, so you can stop resisting now. The man remained unmoved, cursing Killen more excitedly. Just the Emperor's dog. As your former master, I feel sorry for you. I curse you to pay for your killings. You go to hell. The man felt extremely irritated. He took up his sword and cut him down. I told you not to resist. At least that way, you could go to hell with dignity. Killen looked at the room behind the man, suddenly becoming interested. It was filled with various animal skins and treasures the man had collected. He couldn't help but find it laughable, talking about him going to hell, yet none of his own deeds could be forgiven. A large red cloth blocked Killen's view. He curiously pulled down the cloth, and unexpectedly, inside was a beautiful mermaid. Sir, are you in there? We've mostly cleared the scene. Keep your voice down. Sir, that's a fish. No, to be precise, it's a mermaid. I heard Baron Barton liked collecting rare treasures. I didn't expect him to have caught a legendary mermaid. Sir, collecting itself isn't a problem, but legend says if you harm a mermaid, you'll be killed by it. Perhaps Baron Barton's death is related to this. You're wrong. He died because he planned a rebellion. It has nothing to do with the fish. The mermaid Milu curiously watched Killen, making some incomprehensible sounds. Killen wanted to pack up everything here. Anything living on this land belonged to His Majesty. But, sir, does the mermaid belong to His Majesty too? Of course. Go check the situation in the other rooms. I heard they seem to be leaving. The little mermaid became somewhat panic-stricken, looking around at the tank just as Killen and the others were discussing their next move. The mermaid's body crashed against the tank. Killen watched her playfully while Ian was quite puzzled by the mermaid's behavior, saying she was trying to attack them but clearly doing this would hurt herself. I don't know what she's trying to do, but I think she wants to go to hell to see her old master. Killen raised a sword, approaching the tank. Sir, are you planning to kill her? Why not? Didn't His Majesty say to eliminate everyone in the castle? But, sir, wait. Killen ignored his subordinate's calls and insisted on swinging his sword at the tank. In an instant, the tank shattered. The mermaid tightly grabbed his collar, her entire body falling into his embrace. Their eyes met, and Killen stared at the mermaid's eyes, momentarily losing himself. He raised his hand and gently stroked her eyes. The little mermaid stared blankly at Killen, her hands awkwardly moving on his chest. Killen called his subordinate Ian. Go put this mermaid in a tank and pack it up to take away. This way, there shouldn't be any problems. After they left, Killen stood alone in the room, lost in memories. To be precise, this was his second time entering here. However, the first impression was quite poor. At that time, Baron Barton had recovered the Barton Kingdom, merging it into what is now the Barton Dué. The man submitted before the Duke. Killen watched all this happening with lifeless eyes while his former master, Baron Barton, looked quite proud. He humiliatingly told him to watch carefully. Killen smashed the statue the man was so proud of on the table. These damn memories always made him irritated. Sir, the mermaid has been brought to you. You just told me to put her in a tank, but she has legs now. She turned like this after the water dried up. I didn't expect this fish could mimic humans. It seems Baron Barton was quite good at collecting. Killen lifted the little mermaid's head, finding many scars on the mermaid's body. He felt somewhat unhappy, turning to question Ian. With so many scars on her body, is this how you treat spoils of war? Ian replied, I told you to take good care of her. Sir, you misunderstand. The mermaid was like that from the start. When we took her out of the water, she was already covered in scars. Perhaps Baron Barton did it. Legend says mermaid tears turn into pearls. I think Baron Barton must have used a whip to torture the mermaid to make her cry tears. Otherwise, it can't be explained. Little Mermaid, can you hear what I'm saying? Did your former master have such habits? The Little Mermaid's body kept trembling, but her eyes were clearer and more beautiful than the sea. Killen once again felt pity for her. He quite liked the Little Mermaid's eyes, seemingly sensing the man meant no harm. The Little Mermaid opened her mouth, making incomprehensible sounds. Ian hurriedly urged Killen to step back. He was quite puzzled as to why everyone suddenly became alert. Sir, I apologize. Legend says mermaid voices can bewitch people's souls. Enough. Stop talking about legends. You've already interfered with me before. But, sir, we should still be cautious.
I'm hungry.
The mermaid, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Ian and the others wanted to step forward but were stopped by Killen.
I'm hungry.
The Little Mermaid carefully grabbed his clothes. She was actually saying she was hungry.
I'm hungry.
I want to feed. The Little Mermaid gently requested while holding Killen's pants leg. Ian, did you hear that? This fish actually spoke. This is quite interesting. It seems our spoils of war are quite fascinating. Ian, aren't you curious what will happen when we bring her back to the Empire? And so, following Killen's request, they set off for the return journey with the mermaid. The ship was about to enter headwind waters. Killen quickly commanded to raise the rear sails. Someone leisurely strolled over. Sir, this journey has been quite long. We not only subdued the Western nomads but also successfully suppressed Baron Barton's rebellion. After half a year, we're finally returning to Tristan. Ian, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Yes, sir. It's about that mermaid. We're about to enter the Persian Sea. Don't you think we should release her there? Besides, didn't His Majesty order not to leave anyone from Baron Barton's domain alive? But that's not a person, just a fish. I want to keep her as a pet. What pet? Speaking of which, what is my fish doing now? Ian led Killen to the mermaid. The Little Mermaid was hiding in a corner, her body constantly trembling. What's wrong with her? Maybe she's too confined. She keeps tearing at her clothes, but her complexion is also. Didn't I tell you to feed her before we left Baron Barton? About that, I'm not sure what happened. I gave her all the fish left in the castle. That barrel of raw fish I found in the mermaid's room. I assumed that was her food, so I gave it to her. Though, come to think of it, eating raw fish is normal. A mermaid couldn't possibly drink soup and eat fried food like humans. Killen walked to the Little Mermaid. Just stay still and don't move. He put his finger in the mermaid's mouth. The mouth temperature was normal, but looking at her complexion, she seemed about to die. This is too strange. Sir, what should we do? Should we just release her back into the deep sea? She needs water. What are you standing there for? Go get water. But she's thirsty. And we've prepared water for her to drink, but even when we put it in front of her, she won't drink. Killen snatched the water bottle from the maid's hand. She's a mermaid. Don't you know they need something more than water? Saying this, he poured the water from the bottle all over the Little Mermaid. Miraculously, the mermaid, who had been dying, immediately regained her vitality, blinking her eyes innocently as she looked at Killen. How are you feeling? Are you better? The Little Mermaid shyly raised her head, muttering incomprehensible words. Call Third Fu to come check on her, then let me know when she's better. With that, he was about to leave the room. The Little Mermaid panicked. She crawled on the ground, using her last bit of strength to grab his pants. What are you doing? I don't want to keep such a weak pet. The Little Mermaid climbed up his body, cupping his face. Using words learned from somewhere, she spoke, "Don't go," then collapsed on Killen. Deep in the ocean lived a mysterious mermaid family. They would go searching for lovers after coming of age. At the height of their love, they would kill their partner and return to the sea. The Little Mermaid didn't quite understand then, but her companions told her she would understand when she met the right person. That day, when the Little Mermaid saw the handsome Killen through the fish tank, she thought he might be that right person from her memories, but still couldn't understand. She followed her mother's teachings that finding a lover would lead to having beautiful babies. Unfortunately, on her first voyage, she was captured by evil humans. That memory was very painful. The Little Mermaid woke up startled from her dream, unexpectedly finding herself safely lying in a water tank. She excitedly queued up the familiar smell of the ocean, finally seeing her familiar home again. I think I will be reborn. Killen quietly observed the Little Mermaid from the side, surprised that she had regrown her tail. The little mermaid noticed him too. She happily swam to the edge of the tub, excited, wanting to ask the man if he had been helping find water for her. She was grateful for everything he had done for her, but didn't know how to use her tongue to speak. Little mermaid, are you feeling better now? Then it wasn't in vain that I had Ian work hard getting water from the sea. Killen gently touched her forehead with his finger. The little mermaid was obedient. You can understand what I'm saying, right? Legend says if you harm a mermaid, you'll be killed by them. That is an age-old death curse, but looking at this little mermaid's innocent appearance, she probably doesn't even know what a curse is, such an innocent thing. The little mermaid gazed at her reflection in the water, happy, like a child discovering a new world, playing in the water. Killen tentatively took out the dagger from his waist, slowly approaching the little mermaid's tail. At such a sudden move, the little mermaid felt anxious, looking at Killen with an innocent expression. After hesitating, she tentatively reached out and grabbed the dagger. What do you think that is? Killen was speechless at this naive little mermaid, but the little mermaid was extremely happy to have grabbed the thing in his hand. Seeing such a beautiful smile, Killen remembered the mermaid legend his father had told him. Mermaids are particularly beautiful creatures, but they are best at using their songs to bewitch humans, creating false illusions for them, enough to drive people mad, just like his current state. While Killen was lost in thought, the mermaid pulled apart the knife's blade. Looking at the sharp object, the little mermaid showed a dumbfounded expression. Killen was somewhat angry. Let go. I said let go. He pulled forcefully, accidentally, hurting the little mermaid. Only then did the little mermaid understand that thing could hurt people. Killen was really irritated. It seems after returning, he'll have to teach her to speak first. Her vocabulary is more pitiful than a parrot's. Killen left the room uninterested. The little mermaid didn't want him to leave, thinking it was probably because she couldn't communicate that he was unhappy. So she decided to learn to speak properly. After sailing in the waters for so many days, Killen's group finally reached the Empire, dragging a sealed large box behind them. Soldiers curiously asked Ian what it was. Superior orders forbid disclosure. Ian remained silent, but there was something else that made people unhappy. These welcoming citizens looked very afraid, as if they had come to conquer them rather than return victorious. Rumors say whoever meets the Lord's eyes will turn to ashes. We should thank the former emperor for giving the Lord the title of Death God of the Empire. But these are all rumors. People will soon forget about these things. Everything will develop in a good direction. The commotion outside similarly attracted the little mermaid. She secretly poked her head out from the water tank under the curtain. Annie was about to go to the kitchen, but was stopped by other maids. They showed mocking attitudes. You going to the kitchen at this time? Looks like it's to prepare food for that one. You must be tired having to prepare food for her every day. Annie politely said she wasn't that tired, but they didn't quite believe it. Instead, they continued more intensely. All right, we all know these days the staff have been discussing that the Lord brought back a mermaid. Legend says mermaids can kill people with just their song. No, to be precise, hearing their voice would cause death. Annie, is this true? Annie was really speechless at these people actually asking such foolish questions. If hearing a mermaid's voice would cause death, she would have been dead long ago. Annie knocked on the door and carried a bucket of food into the room. Miss, I'm Annie. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. The little mermaid was delighted to see Annie, trying to greet her. Hello, miss.
Miss.
It's not it's Annie. All right, Annie was quite helpless. No matter how many times she taught her, the miss always got her name wrong. Staying in the water every day, eating raw food. Miss, here you go. Seeing you enjoyed the squid before, I prepared this for you. Milu took the squid, feeling sweet bubbles in her heart. Thank you, Annie. Annie was excited hearing her respond so correctly this time, clapping her hands together happily for her. However, at this moment, the main door suddenly opened a crack. The little mermaid nervously looked on. Annie noticed her anticipation. Miss, are you waiting for someone? Waiting means asking if there's someone you want to see. Thinking about it, in your first month here, Earl Ian often brought you food and water. So, miss, are you waiting for Earl Ian? The little mermaid's mind flashed to Killen's silhouette, mistakenly thinking he was Ian. She shyly lowered her head and admitted it. Annie looked at her, surprised. Oh my, miss, are you blushing? But miss, what do you like about him? Is it his handsome face or his glorious status? The little mermaid didn't quite understand Annie's words. Just shy. She told her she liked Ian. Annie didn't understand. Ian hadn't come to see her for a long time. Why did she still like him? Well, please turn around. I'll help you with your hair. To be honest, the little mermaid didn't know why either. Just like her sister said, the day she met Killen, she knew he would be her love. As long as she could see him, no matter how long, she was willing to wait. After all, she had waited who knows how long for her destined person, so what did this little bit of time matter now? Miss, your hair is done. Wait for me a moment. I'll go prepare some other things for you. The little mermaid put her mouth in the water, boredly blowing bubbles. Her sister told her the appearance of her destined person required waiting. At this time, the door opened with a sound. The little mermaid thought Annie had returned, happily calling Annie's name. However, she saw an angry Killen instead. Who are you waiting for? You look quite ridiculous like this. Still can't speak? Are you mute? And your tail is gone too. The little mermaid lifted her legs, stammering, Here, here. Killen understood her words, placing his hand on her legs. Actually, if he hadn't mentioned it, the little mermaid had noticed that since coming here, her tail hadn't appeared. But she probably knew why this was so, because the water here was different from the sea. The little mermaid said some water to show Killen, muttering. Killen was completely puzzled, not knowing what she was saying. Seeing he didn't understand, the little mermaid became anxious.
Ian?
Who?
What?
You're calling me Ian? Before Killen could get angry, he was suddenly pushed away forcefully by Annie. Annie protected the little mermaid beside her, loudly questioning who the man was, why he dared to appear in a lady's room, firmly ordering him to leave immediately. Killen found it amusing. You're ordering me to leave? Are you sure you're talking to me? I'm very sure, you madman. The little mermaid, seeing the situation wasn't right, immediately reminded Annie. Only then did Annie realize the man before her was the Lord. Killen was quite displeased. He didn't even know when his mansion had made such new rules needing others' permission to see his own property. Sir, I'm so sorry. I'm new to working here. I didn't recognize you. I'm really sorry. I truly deserve death. Annie trembled as she knelt on the ground, but this couldn't dispel Killen's anger. He drew his blade and walked step by step towards Annie. I know you've worked very well, but it's your fault for not knowing your own master. The little mermaid watched in horror, rushing up at the moment the man was about to strike.
Ian, no.
The little mermaid knew that thing he took out would hurt people. She didn't like him doing this. Thank you. At such times, you shouldn't say thank you. You need to beg me. The little mermaid confusedly said, please, which took Killen by surprise. It seems you've already learned basic words like food, so you're not mute after all, and you've even put on some weight. Killen pulled her from the ground into his arms. Haha, you now know to jump into my arms? Very good, my little mermaid. But what should I do now? You stopped my sword, so I should kill that maid. The little mermaid didn't quite understand the meaning of kill, but Annie had already been frightened to tears, kneeling on the ground, desperately begging for mercy. Killen ignored her. He thought of an idea. Try to say, spare her. If you say it in your own words, I will spare her. Follow me. Say, I beg you to spare her. The little mermaid understood his meaning. Gathering her courage, she said those words. Please spare her. Killen was about to praise her for being good, but was stopped by the name Ian. He irritably pushed the little mermaid away. I am a man who keeps his promises. Since she said those words, I'll spare your life. But from now on, you must teach her to speak better. I don't want my person still not knowing their master's name. I hope I won't hear the name Ian from her mouth again. Ian somehow got the news and immediately came before Killen. Sir, I heard you went to see that fish. Your news travels fast. Sir, was that maid also so very rude to you? It's my fault for not training her well. That fish begged me to spare her today. Isn't that strange? I let that maid live. Normally, people who beg for survival like that, I would definitely not be merciful. Strange thing is, I felt different from the first time I saw that fish. Killen took up the medicine in his hand and drank it. Ian, if you have nothing else, then leave. Sir, I see you've been drinking medicine more and more frequently lately. I'm worried too much will harm your body. Although this is addictive, it's better than me not sleeping for 4 consecutive days, right? Ian, I don't want to say things twice. Yes, sir, actually, Kalon didn't want to be like this either, but whenever he closed his eyes, those scenes of people begging would appear in his mind. He was sick of such dark nights. The unintentionally kept Little Mermaid brought new vitality. Since Annie became the Little Mermaid's personal maid, she learned human language and behavior every day. Miss, this way. The Little Mermaid carefully walked, holding the wall. Whenever she was about to give up, Annie would cheer her on from the side. So surprisingly, the Little Mermaid showed improvement compared to yesterday. Now can we try walking outside? I'm so excited. Miss, do you want to practice more? It's really heartwarming. I can't help but think of my brothers and sisters. I have a big family. I'm the eldest sister. There are 3 younger siblings at home. Because we were poor, our parents went out to work, while I took on the burden of caring for them. Back then, I changed their diapers and watched them learn to walk. Although they didn't listen to what I said, which was a bit heartbreaking, they are my family, and I love them very much. If you hadn't stopped the Lord last time, I might never see them again. Miss, thank you so much. What's going on here? A woman in red was arguing with maids at the door. Annie carefully led the Little Mermaid to hide in a corner to eavesdrop. Madam, I'm very sorry. We have our orders. The Lord instructed us to send you away first thing in the morning. That's the chief maid. It seems the noisy lady is the one invited by the Lord yesterday. Annie, what is invited? It means that woman spent the night with the Lord. The little mermaid had heard this word before. Her mermaid sister said if you spend a night with your destined one, you can have a baby. It's rumored that the Lord always sends away invited women the next morning. No one has broken this rule yet. It seems this news is true. Miss, the palace is so big. Let's go explore somewhere else. Annie, wait a moment. Annie cheerfully pulled her toward other places. It's quite a pity. She still wanted to ask that woman what it felt like to spend the night with the Lord. In distant memories, the teacher was arrested by the crown prince as a traitor. He ordered himself to kill his own mentor, but Keelan trembled, holding the sword, and couldn't bring himself to do it. The crown prince became furious. If you don't kill him, then you'll be the one killed. Keelan couldn't believe that was his teacher. How could he do such a thing? Kylan, remember from this moment on, he is no longer your teacher. He is a traitor. He almost leaked information, harming the entire country. No, Your Highness, this news isn't true. I beg you to spare him. Emperor, Your Majesty. Kylan begged his emperor brother. Not only did he not get a response, he was slapped hard. Kylan, you are unworthy of being a royal member like this. I now order you as emperor to kill him or kill yourself. This is the only way you can prove your loyalty to me. Otherwise, you have no choice. But this isn't true, teacher. How could you possibly be a traitor? You taught me so earnestly. How could you casually disregard our people? The teacher knelt numbly on the ground without any response. Keelan became anxious. Please quickly deny it. This way, I can do my best to help you. Your Highness, please stop resisting. You should follow His Majesty's orders. Continue. Traitors will always be punished. Your Highness, remember that the sword is the ruler's scepter. It can help you better establish relationships with court officials. It's not just a symbol of killing and harm. Learning swordsmanship can better protect the people. Your Highness, you must live on with no choice. Kylan killed his teacher. That was a terrible memory. Keelan irritably sat up from the cushion. Miss, wait. You need to put on shoes before running. Sweet laughter from the little mermaid came through the window. This made Kyan's mood improve somewhat. Endless nights were sleepless nights. Kylan had had enough of such darkness. He angrily smashed the bottle full of medicine. That medicine had completely lost its effect on insomnia. Over these years, no matter what medicine Kylan took, nothing worked. But he didn't want to resign himself to living with darkness. He hated it so much. At this time, the little mermaid's laughter from the day echoed in his mind. It seemed her voice could provide relief. Historical records state mermaids are very beautiful creatures, but one must never be deceived by their appearance. Otherwise, their songs will steal your soul, since their voice is powerful enough to steal souls. Kylan suspected this might help with his insomnia. After all, there were no other options now. Heavens! Your Highness, what happened here? Seeing the room in chaos, Ian was particularly worried about Keelan's state. Ian, you've come at just the right time. Go bring the mermaid here immediately. The little mermaid swayed unsteadily, holding the soldier's hand, but having just learned to walk a little, she couldn't keep up, almost stumbling. What happened? Can we wait? The soldier paused, hurriedly turning away his face. Sorry, we don't have time. His Highness urgently summoned you. The little mermaid didn't quite understand and could only follow the soldier. When they reached the doorway, the soldier told her she needed to go the rest of the way herself. Enter the room through the living room, turn right, and you'll reach it. Did it take you very long? Kylan immediately saw the little mermaid holding on to various pieces of furniture as she advanced. It's actually Kylan. The little mermaid was very happy. Have you learned to walk now? Walking? Yes, I practiced walking a lot. Kalon walked to the bed and sat down. In that case, continue. Try walking to my side. Because of his words, the little mermaid became serious. She carefully took small steps. Her body wasn't very stable. She almost fell. Kylan found her like this particularly adorable, amusingly watching her every move. What are you trying to do? Keep coming. The little mermaid wasn't angry either, puffing up her cheeks and standing up. Then taking another step and another, after who knows how long, she finally walked to Kyan's front. She was happy, like a child loudly sharing her joy with Killan. I succeeded. Killan quickly pulled her to the bedside, embarrassingly pressing her beneath him, lifting one of the little mermaid's feet to kiss. You came from so far, about how many steps did you take? His actions directly stunned the little mermaid, her face red like a love-struck young girl. Keelan asked again, did you walk a lot of steps? No, I'm fine. The little mermaid, with one foot constrained, awkwardly replied. Very good. In that case, sing a song for me. Afraid the little mermaid wouldn't understand, he repeated. Right here, sing a song for me. The little mermaid blinked her innocent big eyes, staring blankly. I told you to sing. Why are you just staring? Keelan put his finger in her mouth. She had grown teeth. Everything was normal. Don't you know what singing is? Is it because you've never learned? Or because mermaid songs bring curses? You're afraid something will happen, so you weren't taught. That maid, though verbally agreeing to try her best, is just like everyone else. Believing in their hearts that mermaids are monsters from the deep sea, she will surely harm humans. How amusing. Those people only dare keep you in a fish tank. How pretentious. When Kylan said pretentious, the little mermaid had a reaction. You understand this word? Pretentious is mermaid language and means lullaby. It seems the rumor that mermaids can speak ancient language is true. Very good. Since you know, then sing a lullaby for me. Kylan's hand kept caressing the little mermaid's face. The little mermaid's heart pounded uncontrollably with shyness. What are you stunned for? Hurry up and sing. The little mermaid hesitated until Kylan put his hand on her mouth. Only then did she open her mouth to hum softly. The song was ethereal and pleasant, unlike a song, more like legendary sorcery that could awaken memories from long ago. Back then, Kylan really liked watching by the sea. He would sit for an entire day, though nominally watching the sea. Continuously, actually, what he really wanted was to sink to the bottom and just die carelessly like that. The mermaid's song was like new motivation, awakening himself in the sea to live again. Kylan probably understood why he brought her back. Legends truly can never be trusted, but he really wanted to see the mermaid demonstrate her ability to lure people to death, so he unhesitatingly cued the little mermaid's head and kissed her. This really embarrassed the little mermaid. She looked at the man with puzzled eyes. What is this? Keep singing your song. I didn't tell you to stop, so continue. When he woke up again, it was the next day. The little mermaid sat up first in bed, staring blankly around the room. Only when she saw Kylan did she remember she had slept here yesterday. The unworldly little mermaid didn't understand what yesterday's kiss meant. She just felt it was ticklish, her heart beating fast. She attributed the strange fondness to meeting her love. Bored, she reached out to touch Kylan's mouth, but unexpectedly, she immediately startled him awake. Kylan instinctively thought it was an attack, violently grabbing the little mermaid's neck. The little mermaid, painfully, let out a cry. Let me go. Fortunately, the cry awakened the man. Kylan realized his impropriety, quickly releasing his hand. He looked surprised toward the window. Outside, the sky had actually brightened. I wasn't dreaming. The little mermaid looked at him in astonishment. You used your lullaby to save my soul. If this is true, you're quite useful indeed. From now on, your name will be Shia. Annie saw the mermaid lady return and excitedly ran toward her, anxiously looking around to check if she was injured. After confirming she was fine, she urged her to take a bath. The little mermaid glanced at the ribbon on her bottom. She was still in yesterday's state. Annie noticed something wrong and quietly asked, Miss, did nothing happen between you and Lord Keelan last night? Last night, thinking of last night's shy feeling, the little mermaid learned and gave Annie a kiss on the cheek. Annie was caught off guard by this sudden kiss, indignantly telling the little mermaid she couldn't do this. The little mermaid obediently nodded. Last night was just like this.
Heavens, miss.
You mean you kissed with His Highness last night?
Quiche. Quiche.
Oh my. It means mouth to mouth. Miss, in the future, absolutely never do this with others. What you just did is called kissing. This is very important and special. It can only be done with someone you mutually like. With someone you like? Then Kylan treats me as someone he likes too. That's why he gave me a name, Melusine. The little mermaid softly called out her name. Annie, my name is I'm so happy. I have a name and also have a loved companion. Hearing His Highness say he slept last night, Ian surprisingly dropped the documents in his hand. Your Highness, did I hear wrong? You really slept last night? Yes, and very deeply. Just how is this achieved? I can't really say. After all, in the 5 years since the former emperor passed away, my insomnia medication hasn't worked. Was it because of the mermaid? If it really was the mermaid, then summon her again tonight. Isn't that why you came at this time? I just asked you what Duke Cassina has been doing lately. Ian nervously picked up the fallen document. Sorry for my oversight, Your Highness. Duke Haina has doubled the soldiers in his domain, expected to triple by year's end. At the palace or capital, except for the former emperor's loyal nobles, most have started making small moves, almost all indicating willingness to join him. Oh, is that so? Looks like this matter is more urgent than previously discussed. I think so too. Your Highness, want to send people to the Duke's place? No need. Since we'll meet in 2 months anyway, why go to such trouble? Let's wait and see first. Yes, I know what to do. Ian, you don't mind about the count side? Your Highness, what do you want to say? Ian, you know you really don't mind becoming a traitor with someone like me? The defense struggle has always been very dangerous. Kylan actually didn't want Ian to join the rebellion with him. Ian was quite helpless, saying everything very firmly. Your Highness, this is my own careful choice. Besides, you are only my vice commander, not my master. Your Highness's choice is my intention. I will follow you until the end. Kylan smiled at the corner of his mouth, quite satisfied. Ian, thank you. If there's nothing else, you can leave first. Yes, Your Highness. Rest well. But wait. Continue to call the Little Mermaid over tonight. That fish is indeed very useful. Her talent is excellent too. After Ian left, Kylan leisurely lit a cigarette. He began to wonder how many times he needed to hear the mermaid's song to find eternal peace. Your Highness wants the mermaid lady to go over? The guard came to get Shia, like, yesterday. Annie was stunned for a moment before reacting. She excitedly told Shia, Miss C, I was right. His Highness would surely summon you tonight. Fortunately, I did your hair in advance. I bet Lord Kylan will really like it. The Little Mermaid tilted her head curiously, wondering what that was. Miss, be careful on your way. Annie excitedly watched as Miss was taken away by the soldiers. Perhaps due to the Lord's regard for Shia, the soldiers' care for her was much more careful than last time. Annie watched all this contentedly, for the mermaid lady to spend several nights with the Lord in his chamber and still remain healthy in the palace. This was a first. The Little Mermaid opened the door. Strangely, the room was dark and she couldn't see anything inside. Kong, where are you?
Shia?
Kong emerged from behind. He embraced her suddenly as a playful punishment, gently pinching her cheek. Why are you so late today? Then his hand traced along the Little Mermaid's waist, but stopped when he encountered the troublesome clothing she was wearing. So many layers again? How bothersome. She was completely embarrassed. When his hand was at her waist, she felt very uncomfortable. Kong noticed this. Would you like me to help? The Little Mermaid shyly nodded. Kong removed the pearl necklace from her neck. He buried his face in the Little Mermaid's neck. Your usual scent is gone. That maid always does things she shouldn't. After a moment of silence, he finally said, Shia, why don't you take off these clothes too? Take off clothes? The Little Mermaid didn't understand what this meant. Kylan sighed helplessly, saying he didn't want to keep a useless pet, but he still helped her remove the dress. As the constraining dress slipped off, the Little Mermaid blinked her eyes and blushed. Don't tell me you're still feeling shy. I know, I feel wonderful. My whole body feels so light now. Thank you. You're adorably silly to be happy about such a small thing. If you really want to thank me, you can repay me by doing what you should. He lifted the Little Mermaid and placed her on his knee. Shia, sing verses for me. When the first ray of morning sunlight entered the room, the Little Mermaid woke up. Recently, she had been spending every day with Kylan, and she was very happy in her heart. But she hadn't received a kiss like last time, which made her a bit disappointed. She sweetly caressed the sleeping Kylan. We spent the night together. Now I can give birth to little mermaids that look like him. I'm so happy. I hope they come quickly because his nose and eyes are so beautiful. The Little Mermaid devotedly placed a kiss on Kong's forehead. Unexpectedly, the man suddenly woke up. She shyly covered her mouth. Shia, I didn't expect you to do such things. You really make my heart flutter. He held the Little Mermaid's hand firmly, deciding to give her a small punishment. Don't cover your face. Kong leaned down to kiss her, and the Little Mermaid closed her eyes and nuzzled against his lips. The kiss wasn't enough to satisfy Kong. Let me teach you how to kiss properly. Just relax. The flowers in the garden were blooming beautifully. The Little Mermaid, wearing a pretty dress, rushed eagerly into the flower bed. Annie called out anxiously from behind. Miss, you've forgotten to wear shoes. Shoes? Again, I don't want to. They're stuffy. She stepped barefoot onto the grass. Seeing a patch of blooming yellow flowers, she became as happy as a silly fish. Annie, the flowers are even prettier than last time. I remember this. Annie told me before these are called fuchsias, but what's that moving thing up there called? Kong saw the Little Mermaid from afar. Shia, are you playing in the garden today? She gently extended her finger, and a butterfly landed on it. What's this moving flower called? Shia, that's not a flower, it's a butterfly. A butterfly?
Oh.
In your language, it's called Psyche. Watching the butterfly fly towards the sky, the Little Mermaid called out the man's name. Kion. The name wasn't pronounced correctly, and Kong flicked her forehead in displeasure. I'm happy you remember my name, but your pronunciation is terrible. Go back and practice more. I'll call your maid to come get you. Go back when you're done playing. Seeing Kong turning to leave, Xia felt reluctant and hurriedly followed behind him. Wait for me. Let's go together. Kong was quite helpless with such a clingy, silly fish, but since she was his, he could only spoil her. Follow if you want, it's up to you. Being allowed to follow him made Xia extremely happy, completely ignoring Annie's calls. She chased after the man. Kong arrived at the training grounds, a place where men frequent. Annie was worried. Miss, this is where soldiers train. It's not appropriate for us to be here. If His Highness takes offense, we might be expelled from the palace. But the Little Mermaid was completely captivated by the new sights, totally ignoring Annie's words. Annie, look over there. There's Kylon. Kylon appeared in front of the soldiers, riding a black horse. Speaking of the Grand Duke, Annie's face showed admiration. The Grand Duke is truly a remarkable person. My father is also a soldier at Tristan Castle, and he told me that His Highness is the only commander who personally participates in training every day. All right, training is over for today. Kong left, and the Little Mermaid excitedly chased after him. Annie, lost in memories, turned to find that her miss had run off again. She anxiously called out from behind. Miss, please wait. You can't keep following the Grand Duke like this. It's not proper. Whatever you want.
Miss.
What do you mean? Helplessly, Annie followed Xia to the dining hall, where the Little Mermaid stared at Kong in the great hall with sparkling eyes. Annie, afraid she would cause trouble, whispered in her ear. Miss, we really can't go in here. Let's return to our room. We'll really be scolded if we're discovered. But why? His Highness is dining with the Count. They must be discussing very serious matters. Food isn't that something you can eat. As if on cue, a guard came out from the main entrance. Annie, thinking something was wrong, fell to her knees and apologized. I'm sorry. We'll leave right away. That's not it. His Highness says you're too noisy out here. Just go. Indirectly upon hearing this, the Little Mermaid's eyes filled with hope while Annie, behind her, was too shocked to speak. The Little Mermaid tried to imitate humans by picking up a knife and fork. She struggled to cut the cooked fish on her plate. Instead of making it to her mouth, the fish flew into the air. The usually temperamental Grand Duke burst out laughing. Kong treated her as if she belonged there discussing business with Ian as usual. This time it will cost about 60 million, but I heard His Majesty the Emperor bought the diamond mine, Your Highness. That mine doesn't have any gems. I don't know why he bought it. I suspect it was Namarquis whispering sweet nothings. You're right. That old man is quite desperate to drain the treasury. The Little Mermaid made clanking noises as she struggled with the cooked fish on her plate. The noise was too much, and Ian couldn't help but glance over. When will Celta's palace be completed? Ian was distracted by the Little Mermaid across from him, suddenly realizing His Highness was questioning him. He awkwardly turned his gaze back. The interior decorations should be finished by early autumn this year. We originally planned to announce it during the National Founding Day, but the nobility is quite displeased with the large personnel changes. It's understandable. They're excited to finally break free from the former emperor, but it's good news for Maris Na. Yes, this time several neutral families have sided with us. The Little Mermaid jerked and fidgeted with the food on her plate, accidentally flipping up a fishbone. Kong couldn't help but smile. I finally invited you to dinner. I can't let you go hungry, Xia. Shall I have the maid bring your usual favorites? Today's food isn't good. The Little Mermaid shook her head innocently. Ian awkwardly grimaced when he heard Si say Keen. That's how you call His Highness's name. Killam corrected the Little Mermaid with displeasure. Wrong. The first syllable should be stressed, the latter lighter. The Little Mermaid tilted her head and tried pronouncing his name again. Looks like we need more practice. If you find the fork uncomfortable, just eat your own way. Don't just sit there silly. Xia remembered his whatever you want and brightened up. She excitedly picked up the raw fish, put it in her mouth, and ate in big bites, which greatly shocked Ian. Kilong was unfazed. You're eating so heartily, Xia. Is it good? Very delicious. Thank you, Kilong. Ian continued. Tell me, how many people have decided to defect to us? Ian was truly shocked by what he saw. His Highness was actually raising the mermaid like a pet. These days, wherever Kong appeared, the Little Mermaid would follow like a little tail. Ian felt this was inappropriate, but Kong told him not to interfere. The Little Mermaid hid behind the door, planning to surprise Kong. Kong found it extremely amusing. She actually believes I can't detect her. Isn't this interesting, Your Highness? Does this count as interesting? Taming an animal and observing it is quite enjoyable. Your Highness, have you kept pets before? About 10 years ago, there was a fox that was particularly attached to him. Even the master found it very strange. However, Kong found the little fox's constant following annoying, but despite saying so, at night he still let it sleep in the room with him. Kong treasured this little fox very much. To avoid losing it, he hid the little fox under the bed, repeatedly warning the little one not to come out because brother would soon come here to hunt. He didn't want the little fox to be caught, but the little fox came out on that very day. The corpse lay cold in the forest. Ian, do you know when you catch an animal, you must keep it in a sturdy cage? Annie was helpless about the Mrs. Childish behavior, yet the little mermaid was having great fun. That night, Kong took Shia to the nearby sea. This delighted the little mermaid greatly. If you're so happy, go closer. What about you? I'll wait for you here. I want to confirm something at the seaside. The little mermaid didn't quite understand. She slowly walked into the sea, then jumped into the ocean. Her slender feet immediately transformed into a fishtail. The man called out harshly, but the little mermaid secretly dove deeper into the sea. His eyes were fierce, anger reaching its peak. Kong had ulterior motives this time. He wanted to test if the little mermaid would disobey like the fox did back then. Back then, he had warned the little fox not to come out, but he had overestimated it. The little fox eventually ran out and came to the forest on its own. When Kyong found it, it was already dying. He didn't understand why the little fox had come out at that moment. His brother's hunting party came clanking along. If things continued like this, the little fox would surely be caught by his brother, and at that time, the little fox would die a horrible death. A terrible thought occurred to kill him. He might as well kill the little fox himself. Shia, having received Kyong's permission, happily dove into the sea. Ian was somewhat anxious. Your Highness, the mermaid is going into the sea. Don't worry about it. I'm testing if she wants to escape. Shia, who had been swimming in the sea, quickly returned, but as soon as she came ashore, she was roughly grabbed by Kilong. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her fiercely. The movement was too violent, and the little mermaid struggled uncomfortably. However, at this moment, Kong suddenly pressed a dagger against her throat. Do you miss the sea so much that you'd leave me like this? No, I won't leave. I just want to play for a while. I have no intention of leaving. But why should I believe you? I shouldn't have removed your shackles, he triggered Kilong. I couldn't hear any good words. The little mermaid trembled, not knowing what had happened, but Kilong was very strange now, and she was also very afraid. I let my guard down because you seemed obedient. That was my mistake. Shia, take a good look at the sea. You might never see it again. After saying this, Kilong frantically dragged the little mermaid toward the reef. Ian followed, breathlessly. Your Highness, what are you going to do now? Everyone returned to the castle. I won't return to the palace tonight, and we'll stay at the nearby outpost. Go tell the others. Kilong gripped the little mermaid's wrist tightly all the way. This made her very uncomfortable, and she called out for the man to let go. Instead, he threw the little mermaid onto the bed. Kong tugged at his collar with a gloomy face and approached the little mermaid step by step, thinking about what was about to happen. Her face turned bright red. Kyong pressed the little mermaid down beneath him. The large bed creaked ominously. Shia, what should I do with you? Giving you a collar would be quickly undone, and if I truly locked you up, it would be boring. He gently caressed Shia's face. The man's sudden change frightened the little mermaid. Shia, I was the one who named you, so you must obey me. I'll obey you, the little mermaid responded somewhat understandingly. Say you will submit to me, that you'll only follow me. I am yours, the little mermaid obediently said. Kong wasn't quite satisfied and pressed his finger to her lips, making her repeat, I am yours. Kong forcefully lifted the little mermaid's chin. Don't act on your own from now on. After saying this, he kissed the little mermaid's mouth. The kiss lasted so long that Shia could barely breathe. She turned her face away in resistance. Unexpectedly, the man's hands started moving downward. Kong, this isn't right. Although the little mermaid didn't fully understand the pleasure between men and women, she knew that Kong's current behavior was different from last time. If they continued like this, she would really have mermaid babies. Kong pulled her to sit on top of him. The little mermaid confusedly asked Kong in a small voice, hasn't it ended already? What's ended? Our night is still long. When the little mermaid woke up again, it was already 2 days later. Annie waited nervously by the bedside. Miss, you're finally awake. You haven't woken up for 2 consecutive days. You don't know how worried I was. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, but where am I? Miss, this is your room. The little mermaid looked around but couldn't find the man's figure. Where did Kong go? The Grand Duke isn't here. He went to welcome guests. Annie stammered, seeming to want to hide something. Guests? Yes, that Marquis Hasna has arrived. She is the Grand Duke's fiancée. So, Annie, you mean a male and a female? Yes, they can only marry one person, swear to God to be with only this person for life. Engagement means before marriage. So, Kong, and I also spent the night with that beautiful lady? This is different from marriage. The Grand Duke isn't married yet. He can have such behavior. He's of royal blood. He can be with whoever he wants. I don't understand. Annie, isn't spending nights with more people good for having more offspring? Oh my goodness, miss, you absolutely cannot say such things. All right, miss, I won't be here this afternoon. The head maid has sent the junior maids on errands. I need to go to the marketplace. The marketplace is outside the castle. It's where many people buy and sell things, especially now during the autumn harvest Thanksgiving. There are many amazing things and performances. Shia got excited just thinking about it. Annie, I want to go too. No, you must stay in your room and rest today. The little mermaid blinked her eyes and pitifully tried to charm her. Annie, please. Annie really hadn't expected her to use this tactic. In the end, she took the little mermaid out with her. The little mermaid washed the marketplace she had never seen before. She was as excited as a happy child at the carriage window. It's fine. We got Count Lou's permission. After all, we can ride in the carriage thanks to him. We should be grateful to the mermaid. Miss, and what's that with red seaweed on top? Miss, that's a chicken. What's that furry thing up there? That's a bird. Miss, stop talking. Quickly get back in the carriage. After reaching their destination, Annie decided to split up, leaving Shia to wait while they went to check the shops. Before leaving, they worriedly instructed the guard to watch her carefully. However, the little mermaid, who had just nodded in agreement, soon began wandering the streets alone. Everything here was something Shia had never seen in the castle. It was truly amazing. But then a familiar sound came from the air. That was the unique song of the mermaid family, indicating there were others of her kind nearby. Miss, you can't wander off alone. Wait! That was the voice of a fellow mermaid. She must meet them. So she ignored the guard's objections, quickly moving from one end of the street to the other. When she pushed through the crowd, she saw an old woman on the ground, pitifully tugging at a stranger's skirt, saying she was dying. It's this old woman again. Everyone stay away from her. Her disease is contagious. Judging by the people's attitudes, this wasn't the first time the old woman had appeared here. Shia rushed forward anxiously.
What happened to you?
Are you in pain? The old woman looked up at the voice and, seeming to recognize Shia's identity, excitedly embraced her. You mean you're not sick, but hungry? Yes, very hungry. Feeling like I'm dying. You're one of my kind, right? Please help me. Shia nodded shyly, then quickly went to a fish stall. The guard caught up from behind. Miss, this will cause big trouble. Quickly return to the carriage. But I need this for my fellow mermaid. She's hungry. What fellow mermaid, miss? Why do you suddenly want fish? Before they could investigate further, she ran off with the fish. At that moment, a carriage drove through the center of the road. Because of the crowd, the driver was forced to stop, cursing angrily. Where did this mad woman come from? Get out of the way. The nearby crowd held their breath for the little mermaid, the guard desperately calling out to her. However, Shia bravely stood her ground.
Wait.
She's just hungry. She must finish eating. Do you know who I am? The man angrily reached out to use force against the little mermaid. Take your hand away. A deep male voice rang out. At this moment, the man wanted to curse, but was intimidated by Kyung's voice. Didn't you hear what I said? Take your hand away. Oh, it's the Grand Duke. I am terribly sorry. Seeing Kong, the little mermaid's face unconsciously flushed red. She excitedly ran and hugged him tight. Kong, I missed you. I missed you very, very much. Kong's expression was awkward as he turned his face away. A noblewoman stepped down from the carriage behind him. Your Highness, it really is you. Kong pushed the little mermaid aside, striding forward to welcome the noblewoman. Lady Na, hello. Your Highness, hello. It's embarrassing to meet after so long in such circumstances. I don't say that. I bear responsibility too. The Empire's hero is truly extraordinary. I heard you've achieved great merit again recently. I heard you were going to visit the mares. Was I too hasty? I was just curious, so I wanted to see you quickly. The little mermaid peeked out from behind Kilong to stare at the woman. Kong's eyes coldly swept past Shia behind him. I feel that this will soon be my home anyway, but I won't be too impolite, right? Not at all. Since that's the case, shall we go together? Your Highness would be delighted. The noblewoman glanced at Shia disapprovingly, smiling as she placed her hand on Kyung's arm. Grand Duke the First, I am honored, but this young lady is, could you introduce her? Shia looked expectantly at Kong, wanting to see how he would answer. However, she was harshly rebuffed by the words. Not necessary. As you can see, she's just something I keep that often causes trouble. Indeed, the prettier the animal, the harder it is to raise. Kong. Watching the man walk away, the little mermaid called out anxiously. Shia, stay put. Kong coldly threw down these words and left. The little mermaid stared blankly. Kong's expression today was very strange, but she didn't know what it meant. She touched her chest, where there was a painful sensation. At this moment, the old woman behind her suddenly burst into mad laughter. When the time comes to make your decision, remember to choose the sea. The old woman gripped Xia's wrist tightly. She didn't understand what she meant. For several days after that, Xia sat listlessly in bed. The weather is so nice today. Miss, are you going to stay in your room again? Yes. Annie, hasn't he come today either? I told you the Grand Duke is very busy lately. He'll come see you soon after he finishes his work. But Annie, can I go find him myself? Or maybe see him at the marketplace? These words startled Annie. She waved her hands in panic. Miss, that's not allowed. Just wait quietly, and the Grand Duke will return soon. If you're feeling bored, why don't you go for a walk? The garden has beautiful new roses. Perhaps seeing them will improve your mood. The little mermaid tried visiting the garden. Looking at the brilliantly blooming roses didn't improve her mood. Instead, she missed Kyung even more. The last time in the garden was with Kong. Excuse me, could you move aside? Xia looked up at the voice and saw it was the mysterious woman from that day. She hotly held a fan while looking at the little mermaid. Oh my, looking closer. You're someone I know. You remember me, right? I'm delighted to see you again. What's your name? His Highness seemed to call you something. My name is Sashia. What a unique and beautiful name. Misha, would you like to take a walk together? It was too noisy last time for a proper introduction. So Misha, which family are you from? Or rather, which country are you from? The little mermaid was confused by these words. She hadn't heard of any of them and didn't understand. Esther walked ahead, muttering about whether it was the kingdom of Layman or Macgillan. The little mermaid understood this sentence and innocently replied that it wasn't those. She came from Verses. Hearing this answer, Na paused for a moment, knowing that Verses was a country without sea, a rumored small island where only a few more people lived. So, you mean you're one of the legendary my people? Yes, Xia happily responded. However, this earned a rebuke from Esther's maid, who believed Xia was telling complete lies. Esther didn't show much reaction. Her eyes glanced at Xia's bare feet, combining this with how the Grand Duke had introduced her as his pet animal. She actually believed what Xia said was true. She immediately felt relieved of her previous worries. Xia was just a mermaid, without status. Esther no longer feared her. She rudely lifted Xia's chin with a grand gesture. I never kept pets before. I was worried earlier. Now, thinking about it, since you're a mermaid, it's understandable, just like how everyone wants to own precious things. I didn't expect His Highness to have such a sentimental side. Esther walked ahead in high spirits. The little mermaid curiously asked her name. I am Esther Na, daughter of Marquis Na, and I am Grand Duke Kong's fiancée. This is the last time you'll offend me, my dear Missa. The 3 words fiancé were completely incomprehensible to the little mermaid. She continued to ask if she had spent the night with Kyung. Esther's body froze, taking Xia's words as provocation. Her eyes turned fierce as she completely lost her temper. Syra, you're becoming less interesting by being too presumptuous. You think being noticed by His Highness makes you proud, or did becoming His Highness's woman make the world different for you? Don't tell me you're already expecting a child. The maid watched anxiously from the side. The foolish Xia hugged her belly, unaware of her hostility, innocently answering, no baby yet, but soon. This only earned greater mockery from Esther. It's all wishful thinking, Syra. You're really pitiful. If you continue like this, it will only lead to your death. Do you know why I allow His Highness's mistresses to be empire nobles? Having mistresses isn't a big deal. What matters is not disturbing the succession order. Rather than questionable character, illegitimate children suffer greater humiliation. Do you think the Grand Duke would welcome your child's birth? You should know His Highness himself bears the stigma of being the former emperor's illegitimate child. You are of no use to His Highness. Even if you manage to bear a child, it will die by His Highness's hand. Esther's words struck at Xia's heart, her face growing increasingly grave. Castle Affairs led Maraz Hasna to seek an early meeting with Kilong. Your Highness, I heard you met Esther outside the city, so she rushed out to find you. You must have been frightened, but please don't hold it against her. I don't mind. You don't need to apologize for her. Haha, Your Highness is as calm as ever. So, then you sought a private audience before the banquet. You must have something to say. Yes, regarding the matter of usurping the throne, I wanted to carefully inquire about Your Highness's thoughts. Have you considered when would be most appropriate? Maraz Hasna made no attempt to hide his rebellious intentions. Kong also didn't mince words, directly asking the key point. Indeed, I can't hide anything from Your Highness. The new palace will be completed this winter. Wouldn't staging the rebellion then be perfect? After all, many nobles have already sided with us, but the Empress will give birth to a prince next spring. We might not only face internal division, we could potentially trigger rebellions from surrounding countries. Your Highness makes a good point. At this rate, there might be spies. But we've been preparing for a long time. The nobles' dissatisfaction with the Emperor isn't something recent. Mara's Hasna, when you speak of the nobles' dissatisfaction, isn't it just that you want to clear all obstacles before Lady Esther's marriage? You needn't say more. Help me become Emperor quickly, and your only daughter can become an untainted true Empress. Ha, Your Highness, are you joking? The joke has gone far enough. It's been a while since we met. I got a bit excited. I know what you're worried about. I'll consider the timing. Carefully, thank you, Your Highness. However, there's one more thing I must let you know. My alliance with you isn't just to make my child Empress. From the beginning, I chose you as my lord. Well, thank you for that. Just as Na left the hall, guards anxiously came forward to inquire about the situation. But Na understood better than anyone that Kong despised the Emperor more than anyone else. The Emperor had repeatedly sent him to the battlefield. Rather than being manipulated for him, usurping the throne was the best choice. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed to the marriage with Esther. Moreover, the Grand Duke harbored deep hatred for Emperor Ball, so you can rest assured about this cooperation. Although Hassan knew about Kyung's hatred for the Emperor, he forgot that when the Emperor forced him to kill his master, Marquis had done quite a bit to fan the flames on the side. It was he who told the elder brother that Kilong was having nightmares because he killed his master, thus resulting in even more cruel abuse. The Emperor's brother drew out a long whip to punish him. Marquis Na would never know that the door he obediently closed was Kyung's final plea. Kong always remembered this, yet now he claimed with open eyes that he had always been his lord. How absurd indeed. Your Highness, do you have time now? A maid said. Lady Esther and the little mermaid were walking together in the garden earlier. Esther's attitude in the marketplace had been problematic, yet she still couldn't resist personally confirming, Your Highness, I'm sorry I shouldn't have allowed Xia to go out. Should we lock her in her room now? Esther is a clever woman. She must want to know if she opposes a threat to her position. If we step in to protect her now, it wouldn't be good. It's better to observe quietly like this, and let her know I'm not interested in Xia. The maid gently brushed Esther's golden hair. Annie was brought before her. She finally turned around. You're Xia's maid. Did you need something from me, my lady? Annie was already covered in cold sweat after saying this. Don't be so afraid. I just want to be friends with Xia. In a few days, there will be a masquerade ball at the palace. I think it would be interesting to have her participate, so could you bring her? My lady, she's not feeling well. Annie responded very nervously, but she absolutely could not agree to let the Marquis's daughter see Xia. Count Ian had specifically instructed earlier that nothing regarding Xia could be decided without permission. She was someone special to the Grand Duke and absolutely could not be taken away casually by others. So you're saying no? Yes, I'm really sorry. Sorry is quite amusing. The maid suddenly grabbed Annie's arms. She was forced to kneel on the ground. Esther looked down at her. I'm not asking you now. I'm ordering you. I think we can discuss this again. You don't need to be so stubborn. Even if there's no trust between us. But what can we do? I heard you have 3 younger siblings who need your support. Annie's face grew increasingly grave as she listened. The Grand Duke achieved countless military merits on the battlefield at such a young age. Don't you think your brothers could learn a lot if they went to the battlefield too? Brothers were Annie's only remaining family. She couldn't let them risk their lives. Annie grabbed Esther's skirt, trying to make her spare them. Esther's goal was very clear. It's not that I don't want to help you. After all, real combat experience teaches more. This was clearly a threat for Esther. If Annie didn't agree to help, her brothers would suffer. She agreed, through her tears. Esther showed the victorious smile of a winner. Annie, I look forward to your performance. Several days later, the masquerade ball arrived. Annie applied makeup to Shy's face, then dressed the little mermaid in a pink butterfly ball gown. When the preparations were almost complete, Annie wanted to sneak away with her things, but the little mermaid looked at her in confusion. Miss, I mentioned before that this week is the Autumn Harvest Festival. Annie told me about it. There are many amazing things, flowers and all kinds of sweets. Miss, today is the last day and there will be a grand ball in the evening. You'll attend that ball too, wearing a mask and dancing, meeting many people. Meeting many people, Annie? Does that mean I can see Kong? There was a knock at the door, making Annie jump. She wanted to tell the little mermaid the truth with a stern face, but Esther's maid had already entered. Miss, Lady Esther requests Miss CIA's presence. Are you all ready, Lady Esther? Yes, my lady hopes you'll come right away. The maid looked at Xia's bare feet. Though it's cool in the evening, during summer, wearing shoes is still necessary. All right, please wait. Annie pulled at the little mermaid's feet to put on shoes. Annie, I don't want to wear them. Miss, just endure it for today, and maybe you'll see the Grand Duke at the ball. When you see him, make sure to ask him for help, okay? Annie whispered instructions to Shia. Shia listened in a daze as the maid hurriedly pulled her to the ballroom doors, ignoring her protests. From now on, you must wear this. The little mermaid obediently put on the red mask. It was a strange day, and she didn't understand what was happening. Everything was so odd, and she didn't know if she would really see Kilong. As soon as she entered the grand hall, the little mermaid was amazed and was told to keep walking towards the center. But she didn't notice a strange man approaching from behind. Are you lost? I want to find Kong. Can you tell me where Kong is? You mean His Highness? Two masked men whispered to each other. Isn't this the pink-haired one who was with the Grand Duke outside the city? My goodness, who is this person wearing such a lowly dancer's mask? I heard she returned to the castle with His Highness. Perhaps she's a dancer His Highness brought for the ball. Haha, I see. As expected of His Highness, he really knows how to entertain us. The group of men let out unpleasant laughter. Someone even directly grabbed Shia's hair in public. Shia kept backing away nervously. At this moment, Esther suddenly grabbed her from behind, whispering in her ear, Shia, it seems you still don't understand your position now. Feel how they want you. Isn't it the same as His Highness' attitude towards you? Esther pushed forward forcefully, ignoring her struggles. Finally, Shia was pushed out and fell right into a masked man's arms. Fortunately, the little mermaid fell right into Kyung's arms. Although the man wore a white mask covering his face, the aura he emanated still let the little mermaid recognize him. Kyung. The little mermaid excitedly called out the man's name. However, Kilong angrily grabbed her hand and walked outside. The men at the ball, who didn't understand, wanted to stop him but were completely deterred by one sentence. That person seems to be the Grand Duke. But I don't know why he suddenly became so angry. Esther watched coldly, without saying a word. Zia, I remember telling you to stay put. Why do you keep doing things I tell you not to do? Kilong, I missed you, so I came to see you. Is that so? You appear at this kind of occasion, wearing such clothes, and now you tell me you missed me? Do you really want me to treat you like that? Kyung forcefully gripped the little mermaid's chin, then punished her with a forceful kiss. CIA couldn't describe what this feeling was, but she liked it and felt it wasn't nearly enough. But at this moment, Kyung suddenly stopped, his tone full of resignation. CIA, I'm giving you one last chance to go back obediently. The little mermaid was completely shocked, unable to accept such an arrangement. Kilong, I miss you so much. Will you still come to my room? Don't you feel curious about me at all? The little mermaid said one pitiful sentence after another, but Kyung still remained cruel to her. CIA, you seem to have misunderstood something. You're not that important to me. We never had any relationship from the start, even if you have some special feelings for me. Don't bother me anymore in the future. The feelings you think exist are just your own delusion. Kilong heartlessly abandoned the little mermaid and left. Zia looked at the garden scenery, her mood sinking to rock bottom. Making such a scene at the banquet, yet the female lead is hiding here. Esther couldn't help but smile wickedly. Since it's your first time attending a banquet, I gave you special consideration, especially for this masquerade ball. Do you know the mask you're wearing is a style used by dancing girls? And dancing girls are just lowly entertainers at banquets. The Duke probably didn't ask you why you wore this mask because in his eyes, you're just a lower-class person. Esther, you hate me? It's not hate, just hoping you won't overreach yourself. What about wanting to have the Duke's child? I want King's child, but you can't have it. You're just the Duke's toy, a disposable plaything that won't matter if broken. What's the point of dressing up beautifully? Even if others play with you, it's just due to possessiveness. Zia, no one stays with a doll forever. When he gets bored, you'll be thrown away. So now you've been abandoned by the Duke. Abandoned? The little mermaid's heart ached terribly upon hearing such words. She had always known about the word abandonment. Mermaids who couldn't have children would all be called abandoned, and abandoned mermaids could never return to the sea. So now things between Kong and me are over too. After Kong coldly rejected the little mermaid, he became lifeless as if his soul had been lost. And that's where we'll pause it for now. But don't worry, we're covering the rest in the next part, so stick around for that. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and drop a like. It really helps more than you know. Every bit of support means I get to keep bringing these stories to you. So, until next time, take care.